She was standing in front of the industrial washing machines at Murphy's laundromat, holding a basket of clothes that was about to overflow, and looking at me with an expression that was equal parts embarrassment and desperation. It was 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and we were the only two people in the place besides Mrs. Murphy, who was half asleep behind the counter with her crossword puzzle. "Excuse me," she said, and her voice had this quality that made me look up from my phone, warm, a little breathless, like she'd been working up the courage to speak, and had finally just forced the words out. "I know this is weird. I know we don't know each other. But I really need help, and you're the only other person here under 70. I set down my phone. Looked at her properly. She was maybe 28, 29, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that was coming loose, yoga pants, and an oversized sweatshirt that had seen better days. No makeup. Eyes that were brown and expressive, and currently filled with the kind of stress that comes from real problems, not manufactured drama. "What kind of help?" She held up the basket. "You'll need to help me separate these. My washing machine died yesterday. I've been putting off laundry for 3 weeks because I hate laundromats, and now I have everything I own in this basket, and I have no idea how to sort it, and I'm supposed to be at work in 4 hours, and I desperately need clean scrubs and—" She stopped, took a breath. "I'm rambling. I'm sorry. I'm just really overwhelmed, and you looked like someone who might know how laundry works." I almost laughed. Almost. But there was something in her face that told me laughing would be the wrong move. She was serious, genuinely stressed, actually asking a complete stranger for help with laundry because she'd hit some kind of wall, and this was her breaking point. "You don't know how to do laundry?" "I know how to do laundry. I usually just throw everything in together and hope for the best. But I ruined my favorite dress last month doing that, and my roommate told me I needed to actually separate things, and I have no idea what goes with what. And Google gave me 17 different answers, and I'm drowning in dirty clothes, and I need help." That's when I knew this was just the beginning. Not of helping her with laundry, of something else. Something I couldn't name yet, but could feel starting to build in my chest. The way you feel a storm coming before the first drop of rain. My name is Ryan Matthews. I'm 31 years old. I'm a high school English teacher with a master's degree in literature and a complete inability to maintain romantic relationships longer than 6 months. I do laundry every Sunday at Murphy's laundromat because my apartment building's machines are constantly broken, and Mrs. Murphy makes the best coffee in a 5-block radius. I'm organized, methodical, the kind of person who color codes his bookshelves and irons his jeans. Laundry is something I understand. People, less so. But this woman standing in front of me, with her basket of chaos and her honest desperation, was making me want to understand both. "Okay," I said. "Let's sort your laundry." The relief that flooded her face was disproportionate to what I'd offered, like I'd just agreed to save her life instead of separate her whites from her colors. "Really? You'll help?" "I'll help. But you need to tell me your name first. I have a policy about doing laundry with strangers." She smiled. Full. Genuine. The kind of smile that transforms a face from pretty to beautiful. Mia Chen, and you're officially my favorite person in this laundromat." Low bar. The only competition is Mrs. Murphy, and she's asleep. Still counts. We moved to one of the long folding tables. Mia dumped her entire basket out, and I understood immediately why she was overwhelmed. It wasn't just 3 weeks of laundry. It was 3 weeks of someone who clearly worked long hours and grabbed whatever was clean enough to wear and didn't think about consequences until she was standing in a laundromat with literally nothing left to wear. "Okay," I said. "First rule, separate by color. Whites, lights, darks. Reds separate because they bleed. Anything delicate goes in its own pile." "What counts as delicate?" I reached into the pile and pulled out a lace bra. Held it up. This is delicate." Mia's face went red. Actually red. She grabbed it from my hand. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't think about, I just dumped everything and—" "Mia, it's fine. It's laundry. Everyone has underwear. Not everyone has the courage to ask a stranger to help them sort it. So let's just do this without the embarrassment, okay?" She looked at me carefully, like she was trying to figure out if I was mocking her or being genuine. Whatever she saw in my face must have convinced her because she nodded. Okay, no embarrassment. Just laundry. We spent the next 20 minutes sorting. I taught her the difference between warm and cold wash, explained why you don't put wool in the dryer, showed her how to read care labels. She was a fast learner, asked good questions, made jokes about how her mother would be horrified to know she'd made it to 28 without knowing how to properly wash a sweater. "What does your mother think you've been doing all these years?" I asked. "She thinks I have my life together. I'm a doctor, pediatric resident at County General. I work 80-hour weeks and I'm supposed to be responsible enough to keep tiny humans alive, but apparently I can't figure out basic adulting tasks like laundry and grocery shopping and remembering to pay my electric bill on time." "You forgot to pay your electric bill?" "Twice. They sent very stern letters. I paid online at 2 in the morning between shifts and promised I'd set up auto pay. I still haven't set up auto pay." I was starting to understand Mia, starting to see the picture. Brilliant, dedicated, completely consumed by work to the point where everything else in her life was held together by duct tape and determination. I'd taught students like her, the ones who could recite Shakespeare but forgot to eat lunch, who aced every test but couldn't remember where they'd parked. "When was the last time you had a day off?" I asked. "Define day off." 24 hours where you don't work. Don't think about work. Don't check your phone for pages from the hospital. She thought about it. Actually had to think about it. "I don't remember. Maybe 6 months ago? I took a weekend when my college roommate got married. But I was on call, so I answered emails the whole time. Does that count?" "No." "Then I don't know. Why?" "Because you're going to burn out. And when you do, you won't be able to save anyone. Not even yourself." Something shifted in her expression. "Defensiveness, maybe. Or recognition." "You sound like my therapist." "You have a therapist?" "Mandated by the residency program. Apparently working 30-hour shifts and crying in supply closets is considered a red flag." "Who knew?" She said it lightly, like it was a joke, but I could hear the truth underneath. The exhaustion. The barely contained chaos of someone who was giving everything to everyone else and had nothing left for herself. We loaded the first round of laundry into the machines. I showed her how much detergent to use, explained the different settings. She watched like I was teaching her surgery instead of basic life skills. "Thank you," she said when the machine started running. "Seriously, you didn't have to help me. Most people would have just ignored the crazy woman having a breakdown over laundry. You're not crazy. You're just overwhelmed. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yeah. Crazy is doing the same thing over and expecting different results. Overwhelmed is having too much on your plate and not knowing how to manage it. You're overwhelmed, and you asked for help. That's actually really healthy." Mia laughed. "Are you always this insightful about strangers' mental health?" "Only when they're sorting their underwear in front of me." She blushed again. I was starting to like making her blush. It was honest, real, the kind of reaction you can't fake. Mrs. Murphy's coffee machine beeped. I looked at Mia. "Want some coffee while we wait?" "God, yes. I've been awake for 26 hours. Coffee is the only thing keeping me vertical." We got coffee. Mrs. Murphy woke up long enough to pour 2 cups and mutter something about young people and romance, and went back to her crossword. Mia and I sat at the small table near the window, watching our laundry spin, and something about the domesticity of it felt significant, important, like we were playing house and neither of us wanted to acknowledge what that might mean. "So," Mia said, "you're clearly some kind of laundry expert. What do you do when you're not rescuing incompetent doctors from their own dirty clothes?" "I teach high school English. 10th grade, currently forcing teenagers to read To Kill a Mockingbird and pretend they care about moral complexity." "Do they care?" "Some of them. The ones who actually read it instead of just watching the movie." I had a kid last week write an essay comparing Atticus Finch to their own father, and it was the most honest, vulnerable thing I've read in years. Made me remember why I do this job. Why do you do this job? I thought about that. About the real answer versus the answer I usually gave at dinner parties. Because someone has to show them that words matter, that stories matter, that the way you communicate can change lives. I had an English teacher in high school who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, told me I could write, could think, could be more than the poor kid from the wrong side of town. I want to be that person for someone else. She looked at me. Really looked. Like she was trying to figure out if I was real or too good to be true. Why are you being so nice to me? Because you asked for help. And someone should have taught you a long time ago that it's okay to ask. That people will help if you give them the chance. Consider this a lesson in accepting kindness. Mia grabbed her bag. Paused at the door. Next Sunday, same time. I'm buying the coffee. You don't have to. I want to. Consider it payment for laundry lessons. And Ryan, thank you. For everything. She left. I stood in Murphy's laundromat, surrounded by her clothes and the lingering scent of her shampoo, and I knew I was in trouble. The good kind of trouble. The kind that changes things. I finished folding her laundry, organized it neatly in bags, left it with Mrs. Murphy with instructions to give it to Dr. Chen when she came back. Mrs. Murphy looked at me with knowing eyes and said something about young love and destiny. I told her it was just laundry. She told me I was an idiot. Maybe I was. Mia came back that evening. I was long gone, but Mrs. Murphy called me to tell me she'd picked up her clothes and left me a note. I drove back to the laundromat. Read the note. Ryan, thank you for today. For the laundry help. For the coffee. For treating me like a person instead of a disaster. My patient is stable. I'm going home to sleep for 12 hours. See you next Sunday. Mia. P.S. You fold better hospital corners than our surgical nurses. I kept that note. Put it in my wallet. Told myself it was just because it was polite. But I knew better. Knew I was keeping it because Mia had become interesting. Had become someone I wanted to know more about. Someone whose chaos was charming instead of exhausting. The next Sunday she showed up, same time, with 2 coffees and a nervous smile. We did laundry together, talked about her week, about my students, about nothing and everything. It became routine. Every Sunday, Murphy's laundromat, 2 coffees. Laundry and conversation and the slow building of something neither of us wanted to name yet. 3 months in, Mia showed up with her laundry and something else. A question that had clearly been building for weeks. Ryan, what are we doing? We were folding her scrubs. I set down the blue top I'd been working on. What do you mean? I mean, we've been doing laundry together for 3 months. We text during the week. You send me book recommendations. I send you terrible memes from the hospital. We have coffee and fold clothes and talk about our lives, and it feels like more than laundry. But you've never asked me out, never made a move, never even hinted that this is anything other than friendly, neighborly laundry assistance. So I need to know. What are we doing? I looked at her. At this brilliant, chaotic, beautiful woman who'd walked into my life, asking for help with laundry and had somehow become the person I thought about when I woke up in the morning. The person I wanted to tell when something good happened. The person who made Sunday mornings feel like the best part of my week. I'm falling in love with you, I said. That's what I'm doing. I have been since the first day when you asked me to help you separate your clothes. And I realized you were the kind of person who'd rather admit she doesn't know something than pretend she has everything figured out. I'm doing laundry with you every Sunday because it gives me an excuse to see you. Because 3 months ago you walked in here completely overwhelmed and asked a stranger for help, and I've been looking for reasons to be the person who helps you ever since. Mia's eyes were wide. Then why didn't you say anything? Because you're a resident working 80-hour weeks who cries in supply closets and barely remembers to eat. Because you needed a friend who didn't want anything from you. Because asking you out felt like adding pressure when you were already drowning. I wanted to be the easy part of your week. The person who made your life simpler instead of more complicated. Ryan, she moved closer, put her hand on my chest. You are the easy part of my week. You're the only part that doesn't feel like work. You're the person I think about when I'm on hour 23 of a shift and everything hurts. And I'm not sure I can keep going. You're the reason I started looking forward to Sundays instead of dreading them. And if you're falling in love with me, you should probably know I'm already there. I fell in love with you somewhere. Between the delicates lesson and the hospital corners. I just didn't know if you felt the same or if I was reading too much into laundry. I kissed her then. Right there in Murphy's laundromat, surrounded by washers and dryers and the smell of detergent, and Mrs. Murphy's knowing laughter from behind the counter. Kissed her like I'd been wanting to for 3 months. Like she was the answer to a question I'd been asking my entire life. When we pulled apart, Mia was smiling. So, what happens now? Now we finish your laundry. Then we go get dinner. Then I take you home and kiss you goodnight and we figure out how to date someone who works 80 hours a week. I'm a terrible girlfriend. I'll forget dates. I'll fall asleep during movies. I'll probably ruin more of your clothes by washing them wrong. I'm a high school teacher. I'm used to chaos, and I already know you can't do laundry. That's why you need me. She laughed. Is that the only reason I need you? No, but it's a good starting point. We dated, slowly, carefully, working around her impossible schedule and my normal one. I learned to love the 2 a.m. text messages when she got off shift. The way she'd fall asleep on my couch during movie night. Because she'd been awake for 30 hours. The fierce dedication she brought to her patients. The way she cried when she lost one. The strength it took to go back the next day and try again. She learned that I was more than organized laundry habits. That I wrote poetry I never showed anyone. That I'd grown up poor and was terrified of becoming my father. That teaching was my calling, but it was also my escape. That I believed in books and words and the power of story to change lives. A year after that first Sunday, Mia's residency ended. She got offered a position at County General. Actual normal hours. Actual weekends off. Actual time to build a life that wasn't just medicine. We moved in together. A small apartment with an actual working washing machine. But every Sunday, we still went to Murphy's laundromat. Still did our laundry together. Still got coffee and folded clothes and talked about our weeks. Because that's where we started. That's where we learned each other. That's where I discovered that sometimes the most important moments in your life happen while sorting darks from lights. 2 years after that first Sunday, I asked her to marry me. Not somewhere romantic. Not with a grand gesture. Just in Murphy's laundromat on a Sunday morning while we were folding towels. Because that's where we started. That's where we learned each other. That's where I discovered that sometimes the most important moments in your life happen while sorting darks from lights. 2 years after that first Sunday, I asked her to marry me. Not somewhere romantic. Not with a grand gesture. Just in Murphy's laundromat on a Sunday morning while we were folding towels. Mrs. Murphy gave us free coffee for a month. We got married 6 months later. Small ceremony. Close friends. Our vows included a promise to always do laundry together. To always ask for help when we needed it. To always choose each other, even when life got overwhelming. Here's what I learned from the day Mia asked me to help her separate her laundry. Love often starts in the most ordinary moments. Not grand romantic gestures. Not perfect first dates. Just ordinary moments where someone is vulnerable. Enough to ask for help and someone else is kind enough to give it. Mia could have figured out laundry on her own. Could have Googled it or called her mother or just kept ruining her clothes. But she asked a stranger for help. And that small act of vulnerability became the foundation of everything. We built together. Because love isn't about having everything figured out. It's about being brave enough to admit when you don't. It's about finding someone who sees your chaos and doesn't run. Who helps you sort your mess without judgment. Who makes the ordinary extraordinary just by being there. When Mia said, "You'll need to help me separate these," she wasn't just talking about laundry. She was asking if I'd help her sort through her life, her chaos, her overwhelming responsibilities and her inability to adult properly, and her fierce dedication to saving everyone except herself. And when I said yes, I wasn't just agreeing to sort clothes. I was saying I'd help her carry the weight. I'd be the person who made things easier instead of harder. I'd be the stability in her chaos, the calm in her storm, the person who reminded her to eat and sleep and do laundry and be human. I knew this was just the beginning. Not of helping her with laundry, of building a life together. Of learning that the strongest relationships aren't built on perfection. They're built on honesty, on vulnerability, on being willing to show someone your mess and trust they won't judge you for it. Mia showed me her mess. I showed her mine. And together we sorted it all out, one load of laundry at a time. If stories like this remind you that love starts with honesty, that vulnerability is strength, that the ordinary becomes extraordinary when shared with the right person, then stay with Highway Ghost. Because some stories aren't about grand gestures. They're about asking for help and being brave enough to give it.